Hey everyone, nice to see you all here.
Hi.
Welcome to our second edition of Tribe Talks. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome as well. We're so happy to have you joining us in these discussions today. And if it's your first time with Tribe Talks, we want to welcome you. We're super happy that you've managed to join us. And for those of you who don't know what Tribe Talks are, we have started this event planning platform where we have relevant discussions on topics within the TA community. So please be sure to follow Tribe to see what Tribe Talks are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So today I am very lucky to have Vanessa joining myself and Gustavo. We will be discussing AI in sourcing. But before we get started, I would like to go around the room and just introduce your hosts for today so that you know who is speaking in the room. Vanessa, if you don't mind, if you can maybe kick us off.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Chenè, thanks for the warm welcome. For those of you that don't know, Chenè and I are actually neighbours. We both live on the Garden Route in South Africa. Just by ways of introducing myself, I am a talent sourcing trainer as well as an AI strategist and consultant, and I help teams all over the world with their AI strategies, what tools to buy, how to get better use out of LLMs, how to use AI in recruitment, how to streamline recruitment processes. So in a nutshell, anything to do with how AI can assist in recruitment. So thanks for having me here today. I'm so looking forward to our discussion.
Cool. Let's jump into Gustavo. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, Chenè and Vanessa. Very happy to be here today. My name is Gustavo. I'm also part of Tribe. I've been with Tribe for the last 5 years. I'm a sourcing lead. I started as just a junior sourcer, knowing nothing about sourcing. Fell in love with it, and now I cannot get enough. To the point that I'm also, here talking as if I'm an expert. So very excited to learn from Vanessa for sure. And welcome everyone that joined us today.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. So I'm Chenè, just so you know who I am, and I'm also part of Tribe, one of the senior managers in the team. I'm also embedded with one of our international clients. I have over 10 years experience in recruitment. I've worked in various environments from startups to international scaling companies. So it's going to be really exciting for me to hear the discussions that we have today. And welcome everyone. For those of you that are online, I just want to also make a note before we get started that we have prepared some questions to focus on, but this is a community live stream. So we want to encourage you to comment in the comment section, throw your questions in, and if we get a chance, we will bring them up to the live stream to focus on understanding what questions you might have for us. So without further ado, let's get jumping into it. So Vanessa, maybe if we can start with the most obvious topic in AI that we're hearing today is the fear of AI and the reality of it. So maybe the first question is that we could focus on is, why is there still resistance and why are people actually afraid of it in TA?
Sure, such a broad question. And I think that this extends beyond the borders of TA only. There's a lot of resistance to AI because there is the fear of it taking over people's jobs. And I do believe that this fear is real. It's a valid fear. And for the last couple of years, you would have heard the saying that, don't lose out to your next opportunity to someone who is learning how to use AI. They're embracing it. They're using it in their day-to-day. And that is still 100% true. However, the people that are embracing it and using it need to really up it a notch. So the fear is there because I don't think that anyone really knows the power of what AI can do. So when I introduce myself at these conferences, I go overseas to present, I always introduce myself as the AI SME, which a lot of people think, oh, she's the subject matter expert. But I'm not, because I don't believe anyone can be an expert in AI. I introduce myself as actually the subject matter enthusiast. So the people who are being enthusiastic with AI, the recruiters, the TA professionals that are being curious, that are exploring it, are the ones who are going to be way better positioned in the future in order to make sure that they are still employed in a TA and a recruitment position. So I hope that answers your question.
That absolutely does. And I think curiosity is exactly what I encourage as well in our environments. I think for those that are still very, very scared of AI and recruitment, I just encourage being curious, playing around with the tools, asking questions, and going on these sessions. We have free webinars to teach you. So I love the fact that you've shared that with us. So the $1 million question, which you've just said, is AI going to replace talent acquisition professionals? I'd love to hear your take on that.
So the long-term thoughts around this, to be honest, is that we're going to end up in a situation where you have someone who's sitting in a position and they are the orchestra leader, so almost the conductor, and they are orchestrating AI agents. So if you think about it, you're going to have AI agents that are working in the background, doing a lot of tasks in recruitment. So you're only going to need one person to manage that team of agents. Where at the moment, you're seeing quite a few TA teams out there which have got a lot of people that are doing small tasks. So think about where AI excels. AI excels at doing admin. Things like following up with, getting information, getting documents out of candidates, rewriting CVs into company formats and things like that. Now, all of that can be done by AI. So a lot of the junior entry-level jobs that sit in the TA team can be done by a robot, by a machine, by a large language model.
Yeah.
So my thinking with this is that I do believe the teams are going to shrink. According to things like the EU AI Act, which is something that's becoming quite a gold standard in the way that we are using AI, is definitely saying things like, we still need humans in the loop. We need human oversight on recruitment processes. But my question and my pushback on that is always, are we going to need as many people? And that is something which we need to think about. So yes, we are going to still need recruiters and talent acquisition, physical 3D people, but are we going to need as many of them? And that's going to be the golden question. No one knows what that's going to look like in the future.
Yeah, I think that is such a fair point. And you're seeing a lot of it, right? If you're thinking about LinkedIn posts and businesses and reorg structures and things happening around us, I think a lot of business owners are starting to be curious and playing around with trying out this methodology of, is less more? Could AI replace? Could it be more cost effective? So I think ultimately this is the burning question that's on everyone's mind. But I think it's too early to tell ultimately, will it ever happen? I believe very strongly that the human element absolutely would always still be there. And I think that's why it's encouraged for us in the TA community to be more curious, as you mentioned, in AI and being more familiar in how it could support us rather than replace us. So that's just.
But it's also interesting. I mean, if you look at a couple of studies, and I saw one recently where Ford had laid off a whole lot of people because AI was the future and they're not going to need so many people. And now what they're doing is they're actually calling back people, and people who are in their 50s and 60s, because they need that expertise. They're just finding that AI isn't where it needs to be. So I really do believe that now, us as human beings, is that we need to stay at the sharp edge of what we do. So we need to be in your team. I encourage TA folks to be the AI brand ambassador. So be the one who's pushing the tools, who's exploring the tools, who's sharing their knowledge with others about how to get the best usage out of AI. Because that's what's going to, people are going to sit up and start noticing, and you're not going to be the next person on many of these layoff rounds, which we're seeing coming thick and fast out of the US at the moment.
Yes, I've seen that for sure. It's a big topic. Okay, perfect. And what actually makes someone good at using AI, in your opinion, in your experience? Because you've obviously been, to various places across the world and had all these interesting conversations. I see you actually recently came from London. So I'm so curious to find out, what have you noticed as a pattern or a trend that you're picking up in these discussions with people?
It's super interesting. So it's definitely not the people that are still using AI like Google. So, how you would go into Google and you would say, give me all of the information that you have about the competitors of company A, B, and C. Like, that is an easy task for generative AI. It's the people who are really pushing it and asking it to be far more of an assistant as opposed to just something that it can ask questions to. So what I'm seeing is, to make people better users, is they have explored all the large language models. They've realized that potentially a tool like Grok is a great tool for sourcing talent because it's got very few guardrails. Elon Musk knows no bounds when it comes to playing within his staying within his lane. And it's a great tool for sourcing talent. Knowing things like, actually, if I want to build an infographic or I want to build a picture, then Gemini is pretty good at that. Yeah. So they have explored the LLMs. They know which ones work best. They know which one to go to with which scenario they're trying to figure out. And what they're also doing is they also have chosen their favorite, the one which covers, most of the bases of what it wants to do. and they have chosen that one and they're actually paying for it. So most of the time it's a princely $20 a month. And with that, they are getting to be a power user with that generative AI tool. So, you know, tools like ChatGPT, at the moment, using the Codex add-on to ChatGPT, I'm actually building an app that is a research prompt that develops a research prompt pack for recruiters. So that's something that sits on a website. It's got its own web address. There's also something that I shared earlier. I built an AI assessment tool, and that was built using Claude Cowork. So I pay for ChatGPT and Claude. You're welcome to share that link in the chat of the AI assessment tool, which I have recently designed and built. So I'm really pushing it. I'm not going to the LLMs and just saying, asking it questions. I'm saying, this is the problem that I want to solve. I have recruiters from all over the world contacting me frequently, and they want to know where do they stand globally with their AI skills. And this is what I really want them to go and answer these questions, because that's going to answer that question for them. It's an assessment. Yeah. So
I love it that you've built an AI tool as well. I think that is something super interesting that we as Tribe, you know, being embedded on various clients, it's a continuous topic for us as well. Like, how can we better equip our talent partners and sources to be better on the client by using AI as well. So I'm excited to test out your tool. So thanks for sharing that in the chat, and please save it. But what's interesting that we're seeing at Tribe as well as, you know, we work across various locations and with various businesses, is a higher need for sources to be embedded into businesses to help push results. And it's very interesting for me, because if I think about AI and, you know, just equipping yourself with the right tools, it almost feels like it should be the other way around, you know, needing more recruiters, equipping them with AI skills rather than needing sources. So I'm not sure if you're seeing a lot of that in your experience from travels and speaking with different organizations, the use of equipping strong sources and then upskilling them in AI rather than kind of having the TAs be upskilled in sourcing and AI fundamentals. So I'm curious if you've seen any trends like that during your travels recently.
So interestingly enough is that I've now run my own business for 7.5 years. And for those of you, and I recognize a lot of names in the chat, I was always the go-to person as the talent sourcing trainer. So come and see me, and I'm going to teach you how to find tech talent on GitHub and find email addresses and write Boolean and X-ray and not have to pay for anything, you know, just become really good at being a scrappy sourcer. And that was great. But 3 years ago, I pivoted and I started doing a lot more in the AI space. And that was because I could see the impact that AI was going to have on the talent sourcing industry. So for the last 2 years, so if we go back 2025, 2024, I pretty much delivered workshops around getting AI into your recruitment processes, how to use your LLMs better, et cetera, et cetera. But this year, 2026, I've had so many companies come back to me and say, Vanessa, I need training on market mapping for my team. I need training on how do we write Boolean? How do we run X-ray searches? LinkedIn Recruiter is expensive. You know, how do we, what else, other ways could we be using for looking for talent sourcing? So this year, I've actually been doing talent sourcing training again, and at scale for a lot of companies all over the world. So my thinking is that generative AI is actually only as good as the prompter and the screener. So if you're using generative AI thinking it's going to solve all your problems, but you don't have that talent sourcing mindset, you don't know where to direct the LLM to go and help you look for candidates, it's not really that helpful. So my thinking is that everyone in the world needs to be upskilled on how they use AI, how they write better prompts, how they engineer what they're trying to convey and communicate with generative AI to get a better set of results. And that's kind of what I'm getting back to in 2026. So it's been a very interesting journey. And it's great to see so many companies, you know, approaching me wanting to do training. I mean, I was taking bookings this morning into October already for AI training. So it's working, you know, the teams are learning, which is wonderful to see.
Awesome.
Nice to see that. Oh, please go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, because I wanted to ask because in the end, so we see a lot of tools being brought to market. AI. Especially on the sourcing side of things, you see a lot of. You won't need any more sourcers. This thing will source for you, and a lot of the tools that we've tried, we see that there's a disconnect between our mindset as a sourcer and then the tool that lacks a little bit of that mindset. So I am curious to understand what is that companies are asking specifically in terms of skills that they want to pass on to their team members for them to be able to use AI and sourcing and kind of combine into one.
So for me, talent sourcing always has been and always will be a mindset. And it is a mindset of passionate curiosity. So I'm a big advocate of people who come sit in front of me and say, I'm so ADHD and, I'm just not too sure what to do. And those kind of people are the ones who are passionately curious and they won't stop until they actually get an answer. So it's a different mindset, recruitment and talent sourcing, in my opinion. So what I would be looking for is the way an individual thinks. So a talent sourcer is tenacious. They're going to keep searching. They're going to look under every rock or on every website. They're going to do as much research as they can around a company or an individual. That's what makes them a great sourcer of talent. But if they don't know that, it's very difficult from a skills perspective to say, right, here's a tool, and there's great sourcing tools out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some fantastic ones. But if they don't really know how to use the tools correctly and what good looks like as an output, it's quite difficult for you to just say, there's the tool, this is how you use it. Because there's so much more than just keyword matching that goes into looking for talent. It's about, okay, well, they might have not mentioned that on their CV, or they might not have mentioned it on their LinkedIn profile. They might not even be on LinkedIn. There's so many different factors, which to try and train that to some kind of an AI system is actually more difficult than what people realize.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's at least what we've been seeing a lot, is that discrepancy between just a tool and then what actually be able to test it from a sourcing perspective and giving feedback. And we gave a lot of feedback to some tools where we just lack this. Well, yes, but in this specific case, this person could mean this and that, and that's a very difficult thing to prompt. So, but that begs the question on what, and in your experience, has been the main request that the TA as a whole has been asking from these AI tools.
So the main request that I'm seeing are two things, which is at the beginning when generative AI was accessible to everyone. So let's go back to 2022 when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, was, can you write a role description? Because I think recruiters and talent sources were so sick and tired of waiting for companies to come up with a role description. They were maybe a little bit too lazy to go and write one themselves, but that was the first user case. What I'm seeing now is people are using generative AI tools to go and do their work for them. So let me give you an example. They upload a job description, they upload 3 to 5 to 6 CVs, and they say, actually, you tell me which candidate is best suited. Now, not a bad user case, but I do get a little bit of the hairs on the back of my neck standing up when people are putting in CVs which don't belong to them, which contain, private information, social security numbers, ID numbers, addresses, phone numbers into LLMs. And it's a problem because now where do we stand from a GDPR, POPI Act, EU AI Act? So that's a typical scenario. Pretty much every single team that I train is doing something like that. So those are the scenarios. I think that the difficulty when it comes to using AI for a lot of people, and it took me a while to get my mind around this too, was if you can think it, you can now build it. Okay? So a little bit like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. But if you can think about what your user case is. So as I said, with my AI assessment tool, that was the question I was asked several times a day. How do I stack up against everyone else? How good are my AI skills? How do I compare against people globally? So I thought, you know what? I actually just can't answer this question anymore. So I went on to Claude and I said, this is what I'm often asked. Can you help me build something so that people can go and test their knowledge and see where they are? it's like what I'm doing now with all of the tool demos is I'm meeting with a whole lot of AI vendors, not because I love AI vendors and salespeople, don't get me wrong, but because there's a lot of recruiters out there who don't know where to start. So that's where we bring in my sheets, my start.me page of, all of the tools that I've approved and have said, yes, I do trust these are compliant. It's about trying to help because there's just such confusion around AI and where to start. And that's where I feel the disconnect is, because recruiters aren't necessarily the most technical people to begin with. We people. We like to spend time with other human beings. We like to build relationships, become trusted partners. We're not coders, okay? So now how are we supposed to grasp onto AI and all become experts overnight? So...
As you actually brought a very valid point, which is another thing that we also, when assessing our tools in the sourcing, is something that is always on the back of your mind, is like, okay, what are the risks here? Where is this data coming from?
Exactly.
Is the GDPR police gonna burst into Tribe, and because we've made a deal with a vendor that was not exactly compliant. Given that you've already seen that you've been talking to a lot of these vendors, like what are like the key questions that we need to make to these vendors to try to stave away any potential dangers on this AI landscape?
Gustavo, it's actually like you're reading my mind. I was working on a blog this morning that will come out. I put out a newsletter every second Tuesday on LinkedIn. So please follow me on LinkedIn and you'll get my newsletter. But my next newsletter is actually all around that. It's around AI vendors and what questions you should be asking. I mean, another big one that comes into play is bias. All AI inherently has bias. So what are the questions around that? What are the questions around the data and where's the data being stored? And I've actually put together, I think it's 7 questions I'm on now of when you have got someone that you're chatting with who is a AI tool supplier or an AI vendor, these are the questions which you actually need to ask them. Because if there's any hesitation, if there's any unsure answer or anything like that, then you actually need to go and dig deeper. So I'm doing that to try and protect people because there are massive risks. So the EU AI Act has got a category which they actually have pushed back from August 26 to December 27, which is all the high risk users. Now, anyone dealing with people is dealt to be with like a high risk kind of AI usage because you're dealing with people. And that is something which it's such a gray area with AI, they've even pushed that a little bit further back. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think we've all been through a couple of these meetings where we do ask questions, where is the data coming from, especially on the sourcing side, where we know that LinkedIn has such a big, obviously, they are the biggest supplier, and so and when we just feel like it's just this little new paint on the same whole engine, you always get a little bit scared. But I think
and also when it comes to storage of data and we buy data sets and it's like that's wonderful because they're going to be up to date and valid for about 12 hours. Then do you have to buy another data set? So yeah, not easy.
I want to jump in here and just also make a comment that something that I've been seeing more and more often by joining different TA teams is the non-use of AI. So I always worry when I don't hear anything about AI when joining a TA team, because it makes me think, what are people doing individually to try and curiously use AI? And it could be any tool that they Google and pick up and start filtering private information into. So it's a conversation I had with one of my colleagues the other day, and I was just like, but we can't just be using any AI tool. Like, we need to properly vet them. We need to make sure that the risks are not there. And also, if you don't know how you're using it or what your purpose is for using it, I think that can be also really dangerous. So I'd be curious to see if more TA teams, become more well-versed at providing training and guidance for the individuals coming in new into a business and pre-existing teams. And I think there's a lot of lack of that in businesses at the moment. And, coming in as an external vendor into so many different companies, a lot of the time they look to us to kind of give them guidance, which is great, right? We appreciate that. But when there are the times where they don't mention AI at all, that's when I think we should be concerned. And that's ideally when us as vendors come in to consult, obviously, to kind of get more education around AI and some kind of exposure to the business.
And the difficulty is it's actually just trying to keep up, like trying to keep up with everything that's happening in the world of AI and how things are changing, so rapidly. As you mentioned, I just spent 2 weeks in the UK last month and didn't spend a lot of time sitting in front of my laptop playing with AI and building and getting to know what are new tools and things like that. And in 2 weeks, when I literally came back, I was like, wow, this is new. This has changed. Wait, what's this? I need to go and try this out. And that is the difficulty, is trying to keep up to date with everything that is just happening at the moment. That's one of the biggest challenges with what I do, is trying to keep up to date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marcel in the chat made a good point. It's referring to the high risk in the EU AI Act at the moment, which I think is going to start becoming a huge topic for all of us that work in Europe.
Absolutely.
So very curious to see what happens there. So I think it's like,
thanks
watch
to
this space.
the BFG for chiming in there.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, bringing it back to actually using AI without being, afraid of actually getting, huge fines. I think we got a question from the chat. What are the kind of automations that you've been seeing, the use cases basically? Because this, we do also talk a lot about, tools, this and that, but then people kind of get lost in, because, life as a recruiter is busy. And so sometimes people just don't have the time to, okay, how can I set it up? How can I learn about it? How can I do it? And so sometimes it's actually telling the story on, okay, if you build this way, that way, very specific, very simple, people will then go, like you said, if you build it, they will show. So what has been the use cases, scenarios that you've seen that you're like, okay, this in 90% of the cases could help people and TA teams?
So there's two routes when it comes to like AI and automations. There's, you could have a whiz, a superstar on your team, or you could be good with AI yourself, and you could be exploring, okay, I'm going to build some automations, I'm going to do this and do that. Or you could go out to market and you could have a look at some of the AI vendors and say, right, what automations have you built? From my perspective, because I refer to myself as AI curious and I like to go and see what tools are out there, I would rather try and build mine. So the best way to identify where you want to put an automation is, what are your biggest friction points in your recruitment process? So what is slowing you down? What delays your TTH, your time to hire? What do you want to improve? What do you feel that you can streamline? So this is very different for different companies. One company that I've been working with has actually put in an AI voice agent. They do high volume bulk recruitment. So they've put in a voice agent which helps to screen candidates based on a couple of set questions, has a good conversation with them, and then puts the best candidates forward at the end of the process. That isn't a scenario that's going to work for everyone. So what I can say is where automations work the best is around structured data. So for example, anything that you want to speed up and you want to automate and you want to run, in the words there, autonomously, then that is something that you should be looking at a build it kind of perspective. So what have I seen people building, as your question? So different things, from CV builders or CV formatters. So people have used Claude and they have put their templates into a structure, and what they have done is they have automated the CVs going into the right format to be sent to a client. Also doing smart things, like you finish an interview and then you automate how the transcription of the interview, the candidate CV, goes into an LLM and a candidate summary is generated based and linked to a job description. So it's whatever is time consuming and causing you friction. There's obviously much bigger ones. I just want to highlight at this point over here, something that I'm playing around with at the moment is we're all sitting here watching this, and I can see all the people watching on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is full of fantastic data, folks. So I encourage you to go to your settings and privacy, download your data off LinkedIn, get all of your post information, get all of your followers, your recommendations. There's a lot that you can get from there, and then work with an LLM around how you can use that data. because that is an excellent example of structured data. So an example of that is mine automatically now, every time I send out a proposal, I've downloaded my LinkedIn recommendations, and the recommendations that are relevant to that piece of training will go out in a proposal. So just simple things where you have the information already, look at how you could use that better.
I love that. That's so cool. We do a lot of like playing around with AI and Tribe as well when it comes to like talent mapping and market mapping for a lot of our clients. You know, we get a role and the client doesn't know where to start. It's their first hire for their startup, for an example. We do a lot of that. And yeah, I mean, if you're using the right AI tools and you're prompting it correctly, it can bring you up so many interesting points and strategies where you can use the likes of LinkedIn, for example. I think there was a question around LinkedIn, which Gustavo will get to now in a sec. But there's so much that AI can do to help prepare you for sourcing by using AI, not necessarily relying on AI to do the sourcing for you, but rather helping you prepare before going into the strategy that you want to execute. So we do a lot of that, and there's so many interesting things that come up and so many different tools that we're playing around with. So it's very interesting that you brought that up on your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Definitely.
Basically the next question, I think that it's always in everyone's mind. I think it's, okay, but how can we use AI in sourcing specifically in LinkedIn? Because LinkedIn has been, obviously they are working on something, they have their own AI tools, but how would you recommend that we use LinkedIn in this, because it's still a very manual thing to be done, but I'm pretty sure there are some ideas that you could share.
So LinkedIn actually locks down a lot. So LinkedIn has actually got, sitting in front of it on their website, they've got a file which blocks LLMs actually crawling their website. So it's a robots.txt file, and it sits in front of it. So it actually blocks you being able to view the profiles. So if you were to go onto Google and you were to go old school and you were going to go sitelinkedin.com/in and you were going to write a Boolean search string and you were going to look for something and see the results. If you were to go to a ChatGPT and you were to run a market mapping search, that's the kind of publicly available data it would see, the same as the results that come off Google. So in some cases, that's actually better than nothing. And it still works really, really quickly. And it's great at creating a market map. So yes, it can absolutely do that. Can it go in depth and analyze a profile and you can ask it, does John Smith have this qualification? No, it can't. But it's going to surface the name a lot quicker than a talent sources often can, and gives a really nice shortlist so that at least you have somewhere to start your search. So I've got, I can see Marcel in the chat over here commenting about the LinkedIn AI, how it sucks. And I want to just highlight that because I'm so sick and tired of getting emails and messages on LinkedIn that start with, I hope this message finds you well, because that literally is the standard of what the LinkedIn AI starts with. Please do not use LinkedIn AI to write your outreach messages, especially cold outreach to passive talent. You can spot it an absolute mile away. It's an interesting case, but I also just want to highlight here is that, there are other platforms that you can find candidates on. There's other things to think about. You can find people that are speaking at conferences, people that are running communities, people in meetup groups, technical people, people with AI skills, Hugging Face. I mean, you're not just restricted to one platform. And I think that that's the importance of what we need to remember with this, is that, I understand why LinkedIn does what they do with blocking the access, but you can still see, I feel that you can see enough to have a really good starting point for a sourcing project.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
LinkedIn's only as good as the input you give it, right? You're instructing it to do what you want it to do. So, we shouldn't become lazy in recruitment. I think we should just become smarter. And Vanessa, your tried and tested tools, I went through your toolkit that you shared, and thanks so much for sharing the link. I think Jade sent it in the link box now. But I went through it, and I think if anyone is sitting here and in this call, like wondering where to start or what tools to play around with, I would absolutely recommend going to Vanessa's tried and tested tools. It's got such good information in there, and I really, obviously trust that Vanessa's gone through all of them and hasn't put the ones that suck into that
No,
sheet.
definitely not. They've gone back to the drawing board to work on their tools to make them better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any other questions that we have maybe missed, or did we get to all of them?
Yeah, I believe Vanessa already explained a little bit on how LinkedIn is basically, preventing all of these LLMs from actually being able to get through it. There was here one question regarding Poppy. I will post it here. I don't know if this is maybe an
It's South Africa Poppy Act.
Okay, so I guess that is probably a burning topic. So Vanessa, please.
Okay, perfect. So let's have a look at this, because basically the Poppy Act is the same as GDPR, the Data Privacy Act. It's in Australia, so it's a global thing. Every country, every nation has some kind of a rule around data privacy. So it says here, are we safe in terms of if we use a paid version or specifically use enterprise? Now, let's talk about that. So whenever I'm interacting with any LLM or generative AI, I assume that it's going to be seen by many different eyes. And I just think that is the safest way to use it. So you don't want to be putting in any information that doesn't belong to you. So like sensitive information on a CV, those kind of things. So the safest version is Copilot. Okay, so Copilot got a bit of a bad rap when it first came out. I'm actually not minding Copilot at the moment. I'm training a lot of corporate teams on how to get the most out of Copilot, because Copilot now has ChatGPT and Claude as the underlying AI. So it's working a lot better. Now, if you pay for the enterprise version of Copilot, what's happened is that it's hosted locally on your servers. So that means that people that are sitting outside your organization cannot access what you are putting in and out of your Copilot. Okay, so the rule of thumb for me is, no matter if you're using a paid for version or particularly the free version, is just assume that there's other eyes on it. So I can't go into ChatGPT and say, tell me what Chenè has looked at recently in her ChatGPT. I want to try and find out which client she's working with, which candidate she's doing. You're not going to be able to do that. But I always assume that people, like that, they've got all the time in the world to do this. The Sam Altmans and those people are reviewing the chats, and they have to from a safety perspective. So I would just be careful about what you put in there. And another example, and I came across this earlier this week, is if you have an enterprise version amongst your team, some people share conversations and they share custom GPTs. Be careful about what you are putting into those tools, because the person who is the orchestra, the conductor of the orchestra of all of those users can actually see your conversation. So it was a very awkward situation where someone in HR was having almost like a conversation about they were going to have to do a disciplinary against one of the people in the organization, and that chat was actually public for the whole company to see. Oh, so wow. You've got to be really know your way around before you start putting sensitive information into any form of AI.
They have, my husband works for a digital bank here in Discovery Bank. You might know, for those of the South Africans that are online, but for those that don't know, it's a very well-known digital bank. And ChatGPT is something that they started using in the data team naturally. And they all had to sign a non-disclosure. So a proper legal document that kind of protects the company for any information being leaked into any AI tools that they are using. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing more of this, not just within the financial institutions, when it comes into businesses and using AI, because how else are businesses supposed to protect their information? And as well as the candidates, the information is private. And it's such sensitive information that we are, as recruiters are dealing with, that when you spoke to me about it, I was like, that's interesting. I've never heard anyone, doing that before, but it might become a common thing, worldwide eventually.
Yep. And we just don't know. And I think that's the scariest thing here, is we just don't know. Like, it's also generative AI has this thing of continuous learning. So, I mean, that's how it learns from our conversations. I mean, I always tell people in my training, put your memory on, it makes for a better user experience. But also, it's like, if you can't explain it, so I listened to loads of podcasts around AI, and if the people that are creating AI can't explain how it's continuously learning all the time, then, what is it learning? Yeah, it's interesting.
I love Marcel's comment. I love his comments. If you don't want to share it on a postcard, don't share it with AI. It's so true.
If you wouldn't put it on a billboard, don't type it into ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good phrase to go with.
Words to live by, I would say. I do have one. I mean, I think we have 5 minutes left, but I wanted to, because obviously you've mentioned, 3 years ago you pivoted to AI. If you had to guess, the next 5 years, do you imagine any? What's the next pivot?
The next pivot for me, or for the world of recruitment?
For the world of recruitment, let's say. And I would imagine you pivot with it.
I think our numbers in recruitment are going to decrease. I think we're seeing that already, which is a sad reality. I'm hoping that people are recognizing what skills we have if we work in the recruitment industry, what is transferable, what can be done elsewhere. And what I'm also hoping to see is that people taking their recruiter skills and actually using AI to build other businesses, maybe better businesses, offering another service. Recruiters do a lot in a process, and it's a high risk kind of model, isn't it? So why don't you take one aspect of it, slice and dice it, maybe just offer that. And I think that there's a lot of people now that are thinking, well, I couldn't do it before because I didn't have AI, but now I can. I mean, I'll give you an example. Monday morning this week, it's only Wednesday, I woke up and I thought, I'm going to actually try something new. And I've pretty much reworked my entire website this week. I finished this morning using Claude Cowork. So it can go and analyze pages, and I wanted to set it up for SEO and for GEO purposes. I could never have done that without paying someone to go and do that for me in the past. And now, literally, a couple of gaps of an hour between training and being on other podcasts and things, I've managed to do it myself. And that's what I'm saying is that try and figure out how you can use AI effectively to actually take that and create something completely new. And I think that that's the excitement and the opportunity of where we're at the moment.
Thank you. I know that was a difficult question, but I appreciated the fact that, that in the end we because I think we started with a fear, and now we end up with, this is how we can go to our next. Exactly. So yeah, I think so. We're almost at the time. So I also want to give, Vanessa already shared, a lot of materials today, a lot of websites. But I also want to give her the opportunity, if you're going to be in any conferences or anything that people can go and check you out. So now I'll give you a bit to share that as well with the chats. That I'm pretty sure they would be pretty happy to catch you.
Cool. So actually, the really exciting thing in my life is I don't have to travel internationally for work for the next few months. So already having done the US and the UK this year. I am doing another AI talk in about 2 weeks' time. Also, it's a LinkedIn Live, so go and check out the events. That's through Team Network. I actually recorded a podcast yesterday out of Benelux, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. That's going to drop and release next week, Thursday, I believe. Look, I'm always doing something. I can't think off the top of my head what and where. I'm one of those people, I have to take my life in weekly chunks, and I look every Friday, my no meeting Friday, of what's coming next week and am I ready for it? TA Week is happening next week. There's also the AI Recruiting Summit. Oh, no, TA Week is the last week of July. The AI Recruiting Summit by Ben Mina is a free event that's also kicking off next week, so that will be a good one. If you can find the link, just type in AI Recruiting Summit, Ben Mina, BNMENA. So I'll be on that one.
Beautiful.
I hope that helps.
Awesome. Yes, definitely. I think I see a lot of people. Yes, I think you already have someone that will meet you next week. So happy that we already made it happen. Yes, we will. Jan, we will have a recording available, so we will be able to check it out afterwards. Thank you again for everyone that joined us. We will go through all the comments in the comment section, obviously, and if there are any questions that we missed, we will be sure to reach out to you and give you a proper answer. And again, keep an eye on our LinkedIn. There will be more Tribe Talks It was a pleasure to share the stage with Chenè and Vanessa. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. It was
Thanks
great.
a lot.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao,
Have a
bye.
good one. Bye.